Okay, welcome for joining. Thank you for joining us. Welcome for joining us. This is going to be an interesting class, I feel. Okay, so we are going to connect to the portion of Baalotcha. We are in volume 17 in the English, page 457.
Ready?
No.
Okay. Rabbi nope.
Nope. I think actually I scrolled. That's
okay. Rabbi Yossi gives two explanations of why the manna was like coriander seed.
והמנה is just 1 second. והמן כזרע גד הוא, אמר רבי יוסי, לקיימה זרעה וחם. בהרעה כדאי דכתיב, גד גדוד יגודנו. מה זרעה דגד נטלה חולקהון בהרעה. אחרה כך מן השריה על יהודה ישראל. לבר מהרעה קדישה.
Now the manna was like coriander seed. Rabbi Yossi said, God's seed has the same meaning as raiders, namely to establish seed and armies in the land. As it is written, God shall gather a regiment. As the seed of God took their portion in another land, meaning from across the Jordan River, the manna similarly descended to rest on Israel outside the Holy Land, namely in the desert.
די דכתיב כי זרע גד הוא, כזרעה דגד חיבה. ויקפה כד נחית לאווירה, והתבלעה בגופה. ואו כמוה חבריה, ואינו כאין אבדולח כהוא בדולחה, דהוא חיבר כגבנה דמינה דלעלה.
Another explanation, like coriander seed, means like a type of coriander seed that is white and freezes when it comes down through the air and is absorbed in the body. The friends have already explained this, and its color was like the color of bdellium, which is like that crystal that is white, similar to the right above, which is chesed and referred to as white.
Okay, so this is like just one passage that if you just like scroll through it, just doesn't mean anything or not much. But everything in the Zohar has a meaning. And so when it talks about the coriander, we're talking about, a type of anchoring and building a regiment, soldiers, gedud, an army in the land. Like, what's the connection? And if you will, sometimes there is no connection, I would say like in the numerology or whatnot, but in the significance, there is a meaning. In the same way that when you're blowing the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, it has a significance. When you eat the matzah on Pesach, it has a significance. When you drink the wine in all the holidays and Shabbat, it has a significance. And also it's interesting because on Friday night, we smell the besnim, which is it can be like different types of plants that have like a specific smell. And if you don't have those plants, such as a myrtle, Myrtle is one of them that we can use on Friday night or on Saturday night after Shabbat. So we do the connection on Friday night right before the Kiddush. And on Saturday night, also right before the Kiddush, we do the blessing of the Besamim over the myrtle. The myrtle is a very specific plant that has, I would say, 3 leaves coming out of the same root of the branch. So it's very unique to this plant. And that is why we're also using that on Saturday night, because we want to bring that energy of Shabbat, which is an energy of balance, for the entire week. So it is sort of like an opening and a connection to the energy of balance, to the energy of the 3-column system, and by extension to the tree of life. So when we are talking about all those things, so we put things in context, we then realize that now the manna, like the coriander, has its own significance, right? Like maybe not as popular and maybe not as often used as some of those ailments and like the challah and the salt and like all those things. Like it's not because we like the challah salted. The salt on Shabbat has a significance. I explained it a couple of times, but this is not a test, by the way, just in case you remember, and just to remind us, why do we dip the challah in the salt on Shabbat? Oh, perfect. Somebody said something? Come on, George, you must know. You might like you have like the scholar face. Go ahead, tell us.
I know. I'm not
I also
certain
know that you know. That's why I'm asking you. I know that you know. And actually, to be fair, we all know that we know, right? At the soul level, we all have the answer. So, and if we mentioned it once, like let it be like 5 or 6 years, like it's anchored somewhere like in our memory. It's just that we forget. I mean, I don't remember a lot of things, and I just happen to know those things because I keep speaking
Does
about
it have anything to do with left column energy to add salt to?
So you are in the right direction. The challah is left column because the challah is made out of wheat, and the wheat is left column. The salt is not only right column, but it also has a property of absorption. It does not just absorb in the physical, it also absorbs in the spiritual and energetical sense. And so this is why we dip the challah in the salt, because the challah is what, right after the Kiddush, is what allows us to download into nutrition, something that you're going to bring in your body. It is to download into the physical, that energy that you connected to. So, I mean, at the exception of Yom Kippur, where we have the 5 meals, those are 5 spiritual meals. But on Shabbat, we have 3 meals. And on each one of the meals, you have the spiritual connection with the prayers and the songs and whatnot. And after the connection, you would have the Kiddush, and then you would have the Challah. So it's not because the Jewish people from the time of Moses loved food. I'm sure that they loved food as well, but it is mainly because they're used as conduit, and each one of them has a principle, has a purpose. And all that is going to lead us to what we're discussing here, It's not just speaking about coriander, because we're not into Hell of a Kitchen or whatever the show is with Gordon Ramsay or whatnot. Like, it's not about like putting spice into our life. Like the coriander has a particular type of draw of energy that we can use into our lives. So we use the salt to dip the challah in the salt because we want to absorb the energy of Shabbat and keep it throughout the week. So you don't have to eat an entire challah to do that. You can just do one connection, one bite of connection. So unfortunately, I like to multiply the connection, especially on Friday night, because challah is good. Anyway, so we're back to an understanding, a perspective that is given to us, from a spiritual perspective, because, like we can do things religiously and not necessarily ask the question, why do we do that? Why do we use salt? Why do we use the wine? And you'll realize after asking those questions that a lot of the things that are on the table on Shabbat has the numerology of 7. So yain has the numerology of 7. Salt has the numerology of 7. Fish has the numerology of 7. Basar has the numerology of 7. Sushi, I counted, has the numerology of 7. Joke aside, but a lot of the things on the table of Shabbat has the numerology of 7, connecting us to the 7th day of the week that is meant to be a spiritual day. What does it mean spiritual? Does it mean that we cannot be spiritual the rest of the days? The answer is no, of course. We can be spiritual any time of the day, of the week. But on that day, specific day, there is a cosmic opening that is dedicated purposely for human beings, for us to download an energy that is not available the rest of the week. And that energy is to be used afterwards during the week for all the type of challenges, all the types of seeking, problem solving, figuring out, finding a direction or guidance or a guide. The energy of Shabbat is to download into our spiritual core all the solutions and all the answers that are going to be needed. Each and every single one of you can connect to the extent that you feel you can carry, that you feel that you can take it this far. If you are to observe Shabbat like a religious, ultra religious person, you basically need a lifestyle change, transformation. If you want an orthodox following of observing Shabbat, even that is going to require from each and every single one of you a drastic life change. But there are all sorts of ways to connect to Shabbat without even, following all the religious rules of Shabbat. You can start with keeping in mind that there is a cosmic opening, and on that day, there are certain things that are being used to download energy. You don't need to be of a certain religion to use challah, to use wine, to use the salt, to use all the things that we're teaching that is being taught out there, for you to, to do the simple things of Shabbat, to study. Shabbat is the spiritual day, meaning that this is the day that we are to dedicate nourishment for the soul. Figure out what's good for you to nurture your soul on that day. If you're going to do everything the same as the rest of the week, then you just took your day that was dedicated, maybe purposely created to nurture your soul, and you just, press the button pass. And then when we need that energy, that inspiration, this extra boost of energy, this extra uplift when we are down or feeling lost or lonely, we don't have that energy. We're lacking this energy, but it was available during that time. And there are ways that we can download that energy without going ultra but without going extreme. We can do very simple things. And so here is another tool, technology that is being taught to us, and he's speaking here about the manna. Like the manna, anybody wants to tell us what the manna is? What's the manna?
I know it's just what, from what I remember, that it was falling from the sky and you could sort of, it could have been whatever it was in terms of like desire, right? I don't know that it means a specific thing. Is it a specific thing, or is it just like gifted, getting your desire just gifted to you or something?
So there are different interpretation. There's no wrong interpretation. But I'll start with that. Like this idea or concept of sky is not to be translated literally. The sky or mina shamayim, like from the sky, is a level of elevation or connection. So it is where your consciousness is set. And so those people were on the level of connection that they could manifest things that were beyond the nature, physical nature. So the more we elevate our consciousness and the more adequately we can manifest something that is in tune or equal to that level of connection. So the more we elevate, and the greater, magnificent, miraculous things would happen. Healing, encounters, a soulmate, things that were blocked or stuck or unfeasible before suddenly falls into place and is just happening. It's also happening the other way around. When somebody is letting himself or herself, take a fall, not just in their heart, in their mind, but also in their soul and spiritually, when things are tough, when a person gets depressed, when a person wants to give up, that also create a reality that is materializing your level of consciousness that would just be in sync with what you think about yourself, what you think about others. That is what is going to materialize. The easiest and most annoying thing that I would hear is when somebody is having a hard time, is somebody smart, somebody wise coming and saying, why don't you just give it a break and raise your consciousness? It's not an easy thing to do. It's very challenging, but we know it, right? We've heard it and we've learned it countless of times that, consciousness builds reality. But it's not just like the words. It is also the reality. It is also, at the end of the day, it is real. And if right now you feel like bummed and you feel down and you feel negative, you can feel negative. It is your own right. If you're going through a hard time, you can feel negative about yourself or about others, but we can change that. And you know what? Words have power. The same way that I say this to my kids and they understand it, we should understand it too. Words have power. It's not just words. So if right now you're going through like a down and you're repeating to yourself, I can do this, things are coming easily to me, and I manifest only positive things, great things are happening for me. And you choose like 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences like this, and you just repeat it for 30 minutes, you're going to see your heart and you're going to feel your energy level uplifting as you repeat it. Why? Because the brain is just wired in certain ways that are set. So it is almost predetermined. If something is going to happen, A, B, or C, good, bad, doesn't matter, you're going to react in this way because this is how your brain is wired. and has been wired for whatever circumstances, however you brought it to that state for the last 20, 30, 40 years, this is who you are right now. So when something A or somebody is going to tell you B, you're going to react in this way because your brain is wired in this way. And when you have people that, unfortunately, they have stroke, for example, like they show you on the scan that the brain is gone. Like whatever wiring was there, whatever, like it's gone. So this is why a person can't talk anymore, doesn't have memories, doesn't know how to react to things, doesn't recognize people, like also doesn't remember how to move his limbs, like it's crazy, right? Like, and there are different levels of intensity. When the Rav had the stroke, I remember that the story was that they flew the Rav to all sorts of places to see all sorts of professors, experts, and whatever. And the greatest experts, why it's there, I don't know. They are in Texas, and so when they flew the Rav there, one of the greatest professor that was there said, so that's gone. Whatever was there, it's gone. But the Rav can relearn. The Rav can rewire what was done. And it says, I can remember right now. I can remember right now if it was the Rav Ashlag or the Rav Brandwein, but they also had like something similar, and they forgot to read. Like in their ability, they forgot to read, and they had to relearn, to rewire the brain in order to read again. And you know what's extraordinary is that, first of all, the Rav was able to walk, the Rav was able to talk, the Rav was able to do all sorts of things. And people, you know, at the very beginning stages, they were saying like, these guys, like, you know, just call everybody, say goodbye. And the Rav had like a 9 years extension. So we sat with the Rav every single day. There was a different person, and I was one of them. We would go in, we would sit there, and the Rav would watch for a few hours a day the TLE, the Telemann examination, by the Rav. So the Rav would relearn the things that he was teaching. And then the rest of the time we would sit and we would read Zohar. So we would read the Aramaic, we would read the English, and sometimes the Rav would stop and the Rav would say something or share something or ask a question. What do you think? Like to have like a discussion. It was incredible. And so a lot of times the Rav was not there, but a lot of times the Rav was coming back and was the Rav of the old times, like was just like taking you by surprise. And like the experts, like back then, they would say, he's not going to talk again, the brain is gone. And the Rav was able to rewire everything. And so we are preconditioning ourselves and almost predetermining how we are going to speak, how we're going to react, how we are going to respond, how we're going to answer, almost who we're going to marry and what city or town we're going to live in, what kind of car we're going to buy, and what kind of party I'm going to vote for. Like everything is like pre-wired into our mind. Now, because it is pre-wired does not mean that I need to accept the way that it is, because if there is something that I don't like about my wiring, I can always change it. But in order to change it, you have to inject a new program to sort of deprogram the old and program the new. And so, and for that, it just takes not just practice, but it takes repetition. And so that obviously can be prayer and can be like the use of all those tools, etc. But repetition. And so I hear from my kids, because we are conscious parents, we see those things and we can educate them. But we hear like from the mouth of kids, "Oh, I can't do that. It's too hard. It's too difficult." This eventually, if you don't have anybody around that point the finger and says, you could think this way, because remember, words, I don't even finish the sentence. My kids just finish it for me. Yes, yes, daddy, words are fun. And you know what? And they don't just like think it, they like the wiring doesn't have to be, by the way, doesn't have to happen like when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. It can be at any time. There is no too late. There is no such a thing as it's too late. And it can work for a physical condition. It can work for an emotional condition. It can work for anything, almost. There are probably certain things that are not impossible, but could take much longer. Maybe things that a person is like carrying for a few lifetimes, like bipolar, schizophrenia, or things like that. It's heavy duty, from previous lifetime to bring a person to that state. But you get the idea. So when we're talking here about manna that is revealed from basically out of nothing, and it's only things that come from the light, that from nothing you can create something. Because if it is physical, if it is the 1%, you can create a lot of things out of something, right? So like you can think about cooking, for example. You have no idea what you're going to cook. You open the fridge, you open the drawers, you open you open the freezer, and you collect like a few things. And out of like a few things, you just made up a meal. And then your spouse says, "Oh, I thought that you have no idea what you're going to cook. It's amazing what you did with nothing." Well, it's not like you did not something from nothing. You did something from a few things. And that is true for the physical. But manna would be an extension of the light, where from nothing, literally in the physical, there is nothingness, and you create something. You literally materialize. It's like Harry Potter. It's like literally like magic. And that is the pure power of mind over matter. So the Israelites had an episode before, which was with the stone and the water. And God tells the Israelites to take water out of the stone. And Moses didn't exactly listen to God. Moses went and told the people, "Go and hit the rock. I'm going to hit the rock." So he hits the rock and water. So why did he have to hit the rock if the Creator said, "Just speak to the rock and water is going to come out"? So it's not that Moses wanted to disobey, but it's like, imagine when you're watching a magic show, and then you have the comedian that does his magic. You're wowed by him saying, doing like his whole thing, and touching the thing, doing fire, and then a bird comes out, or a stick on the hat and a rabbit comes out. And we're used to a magic trick that is ignited or triggered by something that is physical. We're not used to mind over matter. And because the mind is not used to mind over matter, if Moses would have spoken to the water, to the rock, water would have come out. But not everybody would have seen the water, and not everybody would have been able to drink the water. So remember what we said earlier, depending on your level of consciousness, you would materialize something that is in tune with that consciousness. He was on the level already of speaking to the rock and water would have come out, but then you would have had, maybe 3/4 of the people that would have died of thirst because they wouldn't have seen the water. They were not on the spiritual level to see the water coming out just because he says, "Come out, water." And so he came out to their level and he used the stick and the hat for the rabbi to come out. And the manna is a different level. The manna is a more elevated state. So from the water to the manna, they went through a journey and they elevated spiritually from that journey to that journey. Why? Because on the level of manna, you could just think of something that you would want to eat, and it would materialize. And if you've seen, for example, the movie The Matrix, in The Matrix, if you didn't see it, it's fine. In The Matrix, it's basically a computer reality that we live in as human beings, and we are all plugged into this machine world. The machines are using us as batteries so that they can feed and nurture themselves, and we are plugged into this whatever system, and we live in an illusionary world. We live in a dream world. And so in the dream world, you eat a steak and you think that you eat a steak. But for the people that have come out of that illusionary world and they're in the real world, they know that that steak is not real. In the same way, the Israelites that were eating for a while the manna, they got tired of it. Because even though they got everything, spiritually, physically, the manna was satiating them, it was not enough. They wanted something that was physical, even though they knew that it was of lower consciousness, of lower manifestation. Because the physical reality is an illusion. But a lot of the Israelites preferred the taste of the steak rather than the godly, heavenly taste of the steak that comes from God. Imagine, God is giving you the option not only to spiritually taste the steak, but it's going to taste like that physically, and it's going to nurture your body so you don't need to age, you don't need to get sick, you don't need to go to the bathroom. And because you don't have the digestive system that runs, like everything is healthier. I mean, I just spoke not so long ago with somebody, I don't know, crazy, with a guy that did a water fast for 40 days. So is it, I know I've juice cleanse, I've done it. No, water cleanse. What do you mean water? Like with the cayenne pepper and the lemon and the maple? No, just water. What do you mean, just water for 40 days? And the guy said, yes. And he said, you know what? At the 40th day, I still went to the bathroom, number 2. What do you mean? Like, what comes out after 40 days? And he says, like, you have no idea what the body is storing. It's storing for years what we have eaten when we were teenagers. It's insane. So imagine going back to the manna. I don't mean to be like, gross or whatever. Eating the manna not only would have gave them everything that they needed in the spiritual, in the physical, energetical, and that was not enough. Point aside, now the manna was like coriander seed, which is establishing not only seeds and armies in the land. So when you're starting something, and basically that's what they wanted to do, like they wanted to establish themselves, and and I don't think that it just means like, like the physical armies. It can also be angelical armies. What do we do to surround ourselves with protective angels? We burn sage and different other things, right? So those are different things that we learn along the line, right? Sage is a protective tool that we use and that create cleansing. Cleansing is an energy. The energy of cleansing gets rid of negative energies. It's angels against angels. Negative angels being beaten up by positive angels. And all we had to do is burn sage? That's crazy. And here we're learning from the Zohar that coriander has a property of creating not only seeds for something new, for something like you're buying a house or whatever, like a new relationship, new business, that could have the potential to not only create a seeds for expansion and for abundance and whatnot, but create an army of positive angels. Coriander, who would have known? Anyway, I found that interesting. I didn't want to skip that. Any questions? Okay, very good. Thank you all for joining us. And I'll see you next Monday.
Thank you.
Thank
Yehuda.
you.
Gloria.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yehuda.
Bye-bye.
Bien.